In speedrunning, the goal is to beat the game as fast as possible. And in Castlevania Symphony of the Night, there stands one obstacle that single-handedly is responsible for minutes of time saved and time lost. This obstacle that speedrunners must conquer is time itself. This, right here, is what it looks like to be on world record pace in Castlevania Symphony of the Night, waiting patiently for this statue to move, waiting to execute a well-practiced route for a chance of glory, a chance to claim a new world record. This is a race against the clock, the largest barrier in SotN speedrunning. I'm sure at this point you may have a few questions, like, this is a speedrun, right? If the goal is to go as fast as possible, why are we standing still? How is it exactly that this room can cause so much time to be gained and lost? And what, if anything, can the player do to get around this obstacle? In this video, I aim to explain how this room works in great detail, and how it is single-handedly the largest barrier for speedrunners to overcome in all of Castlevania Symphony of the Night. In a normal playthrough of Castlevania Symphony of the Night, after meeting with Death and fighting the first boss of the game, the next area you must progress to is the Marble Gallery. It is here that you first meet with Maria, as she gives the player insight towards the first main objective for the game, finding Richter. This fated meeting takes place in the central clock room, and throughout the journey, the player will need to revisit this one room multiple times in order to complete the game. This room acts as a central hub for the rest of the castle, a place where many paths intersect. To the left is the path to the Alchemy Lab, Royal Chapel, and back to the castle entrance. Above, you will find the route to Aurochs's quarters and the Colosseum. And to the right you will find the path to the underground caverns, as well as the outer wall. Underneath the player rests a secret door that opens when they are wearing two of the key progression items of the game, the gold and silver rings. This path opens up to a secret elevator and yet another meeting with Maria, as she gives you the Holy Glasses, the item that is normally required to enter the reverse castle and find the game's true ending. This room's ubiquitous importance can be felt throughout a playthrough of Symphony of the Night, and that is no different when it comes to speedrunning the game as well. The path upwards to Auroch's quarters and to the Colosseum is pertinent to speedrunning, as it is the only way in which speedrunners can go to acquire the Mist Relic, which is required to get the Bat Relic. And if you know anything about SotN speedrunning, you know the Bat Relic is the key to going fast in this game. Both the paths to the left and the right of the clock room are always open to the player, as it acts as a hallway to pass through near the start of the game and to progress the player forward. However, the game designers decided to make the path going upward open and close every other minute, as a way to emphasize the room's clockiness, I guess. On even-numbered minutes, the statue is gone and out of the player's way, allowing them to progress upwards. But on odd-numbered minutes, the statue blocks the path with no way forward except to wait for an even minute. When first visiting the clock room, the player does not have access to any means of gaining height outside of their singular jump. This jump is unfortunately too small to reach the higher platform to progress towards the Colosseum. The game intends for the player to purchase the Jewel of Open from the librarian, in order to progress through this blue door, towards the chapel and eventually to the castle keep, where they would find the Leap Stone. This relic grants the player a second jump, which would allow them to double jump up to the platform and progress towards the Colosseum. However, speedrunners have found a way around this. By using the wolf transformation, which is found in the outer wall, players can gain access to a dive kick attack by untransforming from the wolf while midair, and dive kick off this candle and gain enough height to land on the platform above, skipping the need for both the Jewel of Open as well as the Leap Stone. So now, before the rest of the run can begin, players must rush their way to the Wolf Relic as fast as possible, and back to the clock room in order to go to the Colosseum and get the Mist Relic. This speedrun route is known as the Clock Rush, and is seen in pretty much every speedrun category of this game. Before going more in depth on the Clock Rush itself, and how it has become the biggest barrier in SotN speedrunning, we must first talk about how the clock room works and how time is measured in Symphony of the Night in the first place. At the start of the game, as soon as you take control of Richter in the prologue, the in-game timer starts at 0 minutes and 0 seconds. This in-game timer counts up from that point on, only stopping if the game is paused in the menu or if the player pulls up the map. This means from the very start of the game, the timer is moving forward, and every other minute the statue is opening and closing in the clock room. And this is the basis for the game's global clock cycles. The fastest clock rush cycle that has been achieved by human players is known as the sub-8 clock rush, starting the game, acquiring the wolf, and returning to the clock room, all in under 8 minutes. The player will then have to wait the additional time remaining until the statue moves. This means there is a full minute of leniency to make the 8-minute cycle and not lose any time during a speedrun. This global cycle has some interesting implications for various categories across all of SotN speedrunning. For example, the in-game timer isn't slowed down or stopped by in-game loading or lag. Because of this, the PlayStation version of the game, which suffers from both longer load times and slowdown, has a stricter window to perform the fastest clock rush cycle, when compared to its faster cousin, the Xbox 360 version. Even though both versions have the same route and objectives, due to the faster load times, playing on the 360 version makes achieving the fastest clock room cycle much easier and gives the player plenty of time for small mistakes while still not technically losing any time. Another consequence of playing the game with the clock rush in mind is that runners have found interesting ways to best utilize this time in various speedrun categories of SotN. For example, in the ABR/SR category, where obtaining all relics is one of the main goals of the speedrun, runners use the extra time that would normally be wasted waiting for the statue to move to instead take a 45-second detour to acquire the Spirit Orb relic. In the glitchless any percent category, runners will save the game during the clock rush, as it is required for refilling mana throughout the category, and because the 10-second log save animation cannot be skipped when first saving the game, performing the first save during the clock rush ensures none of that time is wasted. You can even see this clock room cycle come into effect in the All Bosses category for Richter mode speedruns. The time it takes to get to the clock room is under 2 minutes for that category. Runners use the extra time to collect extra health max-ups and hearts for the rest of the run. All these different variations of clock rushes all have different aspects and nuances to them that would take hours to explain in full detail. So in order to best demonstrate exactly how it is this global cycle affects how the game is speedran, we can look at this game's most popular category as a case study, any percent no save corruption, on the Xbox 360 version. Any percent no save corruption, also shortened to any percent no SC, means to beat the game as fast as possible without the use of the save corruption glitch, which could be used to call the game's end credits without ever having to beat the final boss of the game, Dracula. This category exemplifies why this clock room is such a great barrier in SotN speedrunning. The goal is to go as fast as possible, and yet runners are blocked by the statue for nearly a minute. Let's take a look at the world record run for this category to further examine the clock room's influence on Symphony of the Night speedrunning. To start, the game loads into the prologue sequence. Playing as Richter, the goal is to defeat Dracula as quick as possible, as well as acquire at least 41 hearts before the iconic cutscene with Dracula begins. After defeating Dracula with Hydrostorms, Richter will end the prologue sequence with 0 hearts. This is so Alucard will have a neutron bomb and a heart refresh in his inventory at the start of the game. Both of these items are used for skips throughout the run. From this point on, it is important to take note of exactly how many enemies are killed in this section of the game, because there is an optimal route for where to get level ups as Alucard in order to save time. Ensuring to kill all of the wargs and exactly 3 zombies will set up the experience such that killing the last warg in this hallway before death will give Alucard a level up. Using the neutron bomb that was acquired earlier, Alucard performs a reverse shift line glitch in order to skip the encounter with death. There is a 2-frame window to activate the neutron bomb while holding left in this position, which both scrolls the screen and gives Alucard a level up on the same frame. Then holding backdash during the level up animation activates the reverse shift line glitch. This will make sure the next load zone Alucard passes through will teleport him a whole room's length forward, past the room where Death takes all of his equipment. This glitch allows Alucard to keep his extremely powerful starting gear, so he may destroy enemies and bosses efficiently to save time. The main technique used to speed up Alucard's movement during the clock rush is a form of backdash canceling known as shield dashing. If the player starts a backdash, then presses the shield button, this will leave Alucard in a sliding neutral state across the ground. Any action could be performed at this point, including another backdash. Continuously pressing backdash into shield over and over again preserves the backdash's fast horizontal speed. The fastest possible shield dash is performed by backdashing for 1 frame, then pressing the shield button on the next frame, and repeating this pattern indefinitely. However, this is impossible for a human to perform at this speed, so there exists a speed cap for human shield dashing when compared to the theoretical limit. After performing the death skip, Alucard will continue to shield dash and platform his way through the rest of the castle entrance. Alucard's jumps are cut short to waste as little time as possible in the air while platforming. Doing a short hop into a downward slash, known as jump slashing, allows for Alucard to kill enemies that are in front of him while preserving his forward momentum. And the specific group of enemies that are killed in this section ensure that there is no extra level up animations before the boss fight, because it's faster to level up multiple times at once instead of watching individual animations. Once in the boss chamber, if both of the bosses Saga and Gaibon are killed on the same frame, the amount of experience points Alucard receives is different than if they were killed separately. This is because the way the experience system works in Symphony of the Night is that the higher Alucard's level is, the less experience he gains from killing enemies. This means if Alucard levels up off one of the bosses then kills the other, he will gain less experience than if he killed them both on the same frame. From here, there's more shield dashing, platforming, jump slashes, and enemies to kill before the next point of interest, the fight with Doppelganger. This fight is interesting for a few reasons. He is affected by the stopwatch sub-weapon, which will fully freeze him and leave him vulnerable to being attacked and defeated quickly. However, there exists a secret technique that has the potential to save time here. If the Axe Lord armor is equipped during the start of the cutscene, where Doppelganger emerges from the wall, the player gains control of Alucard sooner than normal and can defeat Doppelganger as he emerges. This may allow for a quicker kill on Doppelganger. However, it is slower because it requires the player to open the menu to equip the armor, which pauses the in-game timer. For all of the time spent in menus or looking at the map, that is more time spent waiting for the clock statue to move out of the way at the end of the clock rush. And because of this, runners try to avoid opening the menu as much as possible to ensure no extra time is wasted. So with all of this in mind, the world record run waits out the cutscene and kills Doppelganger normally. Next up is a potential time save before grabbing the Wolf Relic. In order to obtain the Wolf Relic, first the elevator switch must be activated. However, before the elevator doors can open, the elevator must be in its highest position right in front of the Wolf Relic. When the elevator room is entered, however, the elevator always spawns in as close to Alucard as possible. Either Alucard will have to wait for the elevator to climb up the shaft after pressing the elevator switch, or Alucard can leave and re-enter the room closer to the top where the Wolf Relic is. This can be done here next to the outer wall teleporter, and here lies a frame-perfect floor clip that can be performed. If Alucard jumps with the right timing before re-entering the room, Alucard can actually fall through this solid ledge and save roughly 2 seconds of travel time to acquire the Wolf Relic early. Now that Alucard can transform into the wolf, before returning to the clock room, it is important that Alucard uses a sloped wolf jump to gain extra height here and collect this garnet. This is used later in a glitch that allows Alucard to purchase the duplicator and other items later on at the shop. One of the important properties of the wolf is that it moves almost as fast as shield dashing. However, when dashing as the wolf, you maintain speed while jumping and running off ledges. Alucard does not maintain any of his backdash momentum once going into the air. So in this section, it's actually faster to transform into the wolf and do some precise jumps to get back to the clock room instead of more backdashing. And after all that, Alucard finally returns to the clock room with over 20 seconds of time to wait before he can progress. To be honest, this clock rush wasn't performed perfectly by any means, but it really doesn't matter. So long as a runner makes it back to the clock room by the 8-minute mark, they are on the best possible pace. So is this it? Are runners forced to remain within the bounds of this global cycle? Forced to wait 8 minutes before any meaningful time save or time loss can occur? Well, no, it doesn't have to be this way. However, the alternatives are not for the faint of heart, and have never once been performed by any human, but are believed to be technically humanly possible. I'm of course talking about the possibility of a sub-7 clock rush. It is theorized that it may be just barely possible for a player to collect the Wolf Relic and return to the clock room before the statue blocks the path forward at the 7-minute mark. For reference, the world record run returns to the clock room at 7 minutes and 36 seconds, according to the timer on the screen. And for the sub-7 clock rush to work, Alucard would need to be already past the statue before it starts closing at 6 minutes and 58 seconds. In order to save 40 seconds off the clock rush and beat the 8-minute cycle, different strategies would need to be employed. The ways of attempting to save time in the clock rush compared to basic strategies become very difficult very quickly and require both perfect luck and execution. Outside of executing the general movement techniques faster, the other time saves add much more difficulty and randomness to the run. Starting at the beginning, during the prologue fight with Dracula, you can opt to not get the neutron bomb by skipping the 41 heart requirement, and fight him with minimal hearts. During the fight when Richter does the Holy Water item crash, Hydrostorm, if he then throws holy water down onto the ground during the Hydrostorm animation, this can activate a glitch known as damage stacking. No one really knows exactly why this happens, but essentially it can allow for insanely quick kills on Dracula. And when going for a sub 7 clock rush, a runner would need 3 perfect damage stacks in a row to defeat Dracula as quick as possible. Afterwards, the next major difference is in the death skip. This skip is insanely precise, requiring frame perfect timing instead of the 2-frame window of the neutron bomb. And it also relies on the spirits to cooperate and fly directly towards the warg. Everything has to come together just right. But if done correctly, this can save around 5 seconds over the neutron bomb method. The Slagra and Gaibon double kill is absolutely required to save the extra 3 seconds on skipping that level up animation. But because the prologue will be completed faster on a sub 7 attempt, this actually means Alucard has a higher chance of having the maximum strength value possible before this fight. And with the maximum strength value, this actually makes Alucard do enough damage to cause Gaibon to drop Slagra earlier in their attack cycle, and makes the process of getting the double kill even more difficult. There is a method popularized by the runner PC Trax that involves damage boosting to cancel the sword swing before it double hits to ensure that you have a setup for the double kill more easily. This method also has both of the bosses dying while on the ground, which starts their death animation sooner, allowing for the boss door to open up sooner as well, canceling out any time loss from taking damage. Then the run would need to perform the elevator floor clip for an additional 2 seconds saved. They would then skip the Garnet altogether, as jumping up to grab the Garnet costs over 5 seconds compared to skipping it. There is an alternative sellable gem that is used in this case that is about 10 seconds slower compared to the Garnet, but that time loss won't happen until after the clock rush, and saving 60 seconds in the clock rush only to lose 10 seconds later is definitely worth it. Finally, the last possible time saver for the clock rush is a modified wolf movement strat that helps maintain momentum in the long hallway in the marble gallery. This requires multiple precise jumps. These jumps allow the wolf to clear these enemies while maintaining forward momentum. This must be performed multiple times throughout the hallway, and saves a whopping 1 second over the alternative method of jump slashing and shield dashing through the room. Afterwards, the rest of the strategies are the same. No human has been able to perform all of these tricks in a single segment and make it to the clock room in under 7 minutes. The closest anyone has ever come is myself attempting to get the sub 7 clock rush back in 2017. The final best time I ever got was a 7 minute and 8 second time, which is still 10 seconds away from being a possible sub 7 time. So does that mean the sub 7 dream is dead? Without performing near task level execution for 7 minutes straight, what can a runner possibly do to beat the clock? Well, they could just get lucky. Very, very lucky. In Symphony of the Night, there exists an item that could be used to gain enough height necessary to get into Aurochs's quarters without using the dive kick boost from the wolf transformation. This item is the Toadstool, normally a food item in the game designed as the poisonous counterpart, the shiitake mushroom. Whereas the shiitake mushroom heals the player by a decent 30 HP, the Toadstool actually damages the player by 1 HP and causes the player to get poisoned. However, this damage taken also forces Alucard to be knocked back. This knockback could be manipulated to force Alucard onto the ledge and allow him to progress forward. Well, where can we find this Toadstool item in-game? It does appear as a static item on the map in the lower part of the caverns. This location is actually accessible to Alucard if he performs a reverse shift line glitch to pass this gate that normally prevents access to the caverns. However, if Alucard traverses through the caverns in this way, they will still be unable to acquire the Toadstool. As it turns out, it is actually a single pixel too high for the player to reach with a single jump. If there was just some way to jump just 1 pixel higher, then a consistent and quick method of acquiring the Toadstool would be possible, and this would become the main strategy for getting past the clock room. Sadly, this is not possible. However, there is another way the player can acquire a Toadstool. The Stone Rose enemy in the long hallway of the Marble Gallery has a small chance to drop a rare item known as the Meal Ticket. This is a single-use item that spawns a random food item from a list of 41 options. This means if a player wanted to skip the wolf relic entirely, they would need a meal ticket drop from the stone roses, which is around a 1 in 100 chance. They would then need the meal ticket to drop a toadstool, which is a 1 in 41 chance. So combined, it's a 1 in 4,100 chance just to get the toadstool. And getting the toadstool doesn't mean the runner is in the clear to skip the clock cycle. The damage boost itself is not trivial to perform either. First, the player must take damage from this skeleton's bone before attempting the trick. This ensures that the knockback taken from the toadstool always sends Alucard to the left. Otherwise, the knockback would send him to the right and the trick would not be possible. Next, it's important to note that when Alucard throws the toadstool out to be collected, the throw arc of all food items in the game is random. This means without a proper setup to throw the toadstool onto the ledge, the player can't guarantee that the toadstool will be in a spot that works to boost them up onto the ledge. This incredibly rare occurrence, if performed in a run, would save potential minutes of time from the clock rush. The time it takes to start the game and get the first potential meal ticket drop can be as fast as 4 minutes and 30 seconds into the run. This gives plenty of time to set up for a potential 6-minute clock rush cycle, and possibly even a sub 5-minute clock rush cycle with task level execution. Saving potentially 2 minutes at the start of a speedrun that is only 17 minutes long to begin with is a massive potential for time save. However, even though there is a potential for minutes of time save during the clock rush itself, performing the toadstool route would change how the rest of the run would need to be performed, losing small amounts of time in some sections. For example, right after performing the toadstool damage boost, the runner would need to break open this secret wall and acquire an onyx before proceeding to the Colosseum. This gem would replace the garnet that is normally required for the shop glitch later on. This extra detour costs about 10 seconds compared to getting the garnet. The run would also not have access to the wolf relic to use when attempting to get to the fairy card. There is an alternative method that would need to be performed, using the mist transformation to dive kick off of the books to reach the ledge above. Also, because the player does not have the wolf relic, they would not be able to perform the wolf clip on these stairs after acquiring the bat relic. So instead they must use a library card and leave the intended way, losing about 8 seconds compared to performing the floor clip. After leaving the library, the runner would then have to scale up these stairs towards the clock tower instead of taking the elevator, because the elevator switch has not been pressed. This would cost a few more seconds, and then afterwards, the runner would then have to perform a slower version of the Richter skip, since they never acquired the wolf relic in this version of the route. So for a run of Castlevania Symphony of the Night to be finished using the toadstool, first the runner would have to get a toadstool during the clock rush, then perform a near frame-perfect toadstool toss and damage boost, then perform a completely different route than normal. This is all within the possibility for a human to perform in a run. However, the luck aspect of this route has led most runners to believe that the odds of this being done in a real-time run are basically zero. And this is where SotN speedrunning lies currently. Those are the two options for trying to beat the clock in Castlevania Symphony of the Night. Potential minutes of time save, locked behind a statue, and the only way to get past it is to either get insanely lucky with the toadstool drop, or to get moderately lucky and perform near perfect execution for 7 minutes straight. And even though there is the potential for insane time save, most runners are very content. The clock rush itself is not very stressful. Since there's a decent amount of leniency to get the best possible time, it allows for the focus of the run to be more on the later sections after the clock rush. So will any runner grind out the execution and luck required to beat the 8-minute clock rush barrier? I'm not sure. However, the first runner to ever do so and finish a run would be guaranteeing themselves a world record that may well stay uncontested for years. And perhaps the chance for glory to be the first to achieve such a milestone may be motivation enough for someone. But until then, this has been Dragon Blitz, signing off. Hello, thanks for watching the video. This is my first ever video essay type content thing. Hopefully you enjoyed it. If you made it all the way to the end of the video, please consider subscribing. It helps my channel out so much, and I want to do more content similar to this in the future. So let me know if you want to see stuff like this in the comments. I also want to give a huge shout outs to everybody who supports me on Patreon. My patrons on Patreon got a chance to watch this video early, as well as be kind of a part of the editing process. And like, I asked for feedback early, showed different snippets and whatnot. If you're interested in supporting me that way, it's probably one of the best ways to support me as a content creator is through Patreon. And I guess the last thing I'll put here is make sure to follow the Twitch streams. I stream 4 days a week. I always announce when I'm going live on my Twitter and on my Discord, so make sure to join those if you want to catch the live stream. I also posted on the community board here on YouTube, but I'm not sure how many of you guys end up actually seeing those. And again, thank you so much, and I will see you in the next one. Peace out.